Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Common Sense with Conn radio call-in talk show. The phone number here, if you want to call in and talk about something, is 254-773-1400. This is KTEM on your AM dial, 1400 on your AM dial. Same number as it is to call in. So if you got something to talk about, give me a holler and we'll talk about it. Mostly what we want to talk about is current events, what's going on in our nation politically.
Oh, you don't want to start off with just that, at the Ted Cruz rally last night, how the woman busted in and threw food at Ted Cruz, and how
I hate to start with something so negative, but I guess
I thought it was just funny as all get out. Benito's people are they're crazy and aggressively violent, I guess.
Well, it makes me question what kind of people are Democrats. What kind of people follow that kind of thinking? Whatever happened to civility? Whatever happened to just common decency?
Decorum?
Yeah. We've got a lady came in to the Ted Cruz rally last night.
Now, she wasn't a lady.
Oh, no.
She was she was a female.
She was a female.
A person.
Yeah. But, yeah, I wasn't there. Tina was there. I had to leave early, but I might let Tina describe to you what happened.
Well, I'm short, and it was a packed crowd, and that's a whole nother subject. Why in the world did they pick this venue instead of the expo center where they actually could have fit everybody in and not had people, leave? And they could have had so much more money they could have raised and more volunteers and stuff, but don't want to get off on a rabbit trail yet. But, yeah, packed house, sweating to death, people thinking they were going to pass out. And here comes this woman, and she comes barging in with her sign and screaming, and she threw some kind of food. I don't know whether she yanked it off somebody else's table or she brought it in with her and threw it at him. And a couple of the older guys got up, yanked her, flung her around, and I think she bumped into a table pretty good. And they drug her out of there and yanked the sign out of her hand and ripped it up and threw it in the air. It was pretty good. Yeah, and she got exactly what she deserved. And the cops didn't move. His staff didn't move. But I'll tell you what, our public did. It was great. Looks like we already got a caller.
Well, there's 2 points I would like to make about this. One point is, why does anyone want to follow the leadership of someone that rude and that what do you call it, immature people that act like that?
Yes, she was in her 60s.
Well, maybe she never grew up. I don't know, but what kind of leadership does the Democrat Party have that allows or encourages that kind of behavior? This is crazy. But another point I'd like to raise is, who stood up and controlled her?
Some older gentlemen.
It was not the 20-year-olds. It was not the 25-year-old millennials. It was not the police officers. It was 2 older folks, probably about as old as I am. So what is happening to manhood in this country? What's happening to, well, you hear so much about the destruction of masculinity. Okay.
Well, before you go into that, the younger men, if you will, that I saw in there were all extremely well dressed in their skinny slacks and skinny jeans and this and that. And there were some high schoolers or just out of high school in there too. And you could just feel all the air be taken out of them. They were just aghast and just shocked, and they just stood there shocked and blown away that this could be happening. Well, instead of taking action and just, she actually, was assaulting him, and no one, including the officers or his staff, took action against it. And these people in the audience sure did.
Well, thank the good Lord for people in the audience that were that age, and apparently somewhere in their life they grew some guts enough to help them step up there and do something.
They were
like
all
that.
working men.
They were working, yeah.
Yeah, so that's your masculinity.
Well, exactly. And this move that we're seeing now in the nation to destroy toxic masculinity, well, okay, before I get started, I better let Joe talk a minute. Joe, you there?
Yes, sir, Conn, I am here, and I was listening to you, and you wanted to talk about something positive to start off the program, and I'm just leaving the veterans townhouses that are under construction. I'm covered in paint, and we were getting the community center pretty well, getting ready to have electrical hookups and cabinets, and that should be a finished project within about 2 weeks. And the first one of our veterans is going to be actually moving in to his new home around the second or third week in September.
That sounds wonderful.
It's going along very well. Pat Patterson has got the ball rolling on this thing, and things are happening pretty quickly. And we were glad to see a little bit of rain last night over in that area. Kind of kept the dust down a little bit. But we don't have electricity in the buildings yet, so it's still pretty warm and humid, but making a lot of progress. And I'm just so proud of how everything is going, and how many people are coming in and donating time and services to make this project a completed one. And we're still on track for around Thanksgiving to get this thing opened up and kicked off, and we'll see who we can get to come down and take a look at it. We've already had a lot of people calling and even sending in people from other states and looking at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think it's something that is going to expand very quickly once we get it finished and really get it out there on the market.
Okay, Joe, give them the phone number again, if you will.
The phone number is 493-4000, and that's Keep Temple Beautiful office. If you want to call and help, we have a couple of projects going on again next weekend, and we'll be expanding even more now that we got the community center pretty much to a point where that's going to be wrapping up, and again, getting one of the townhomes ready for a veteran to be able to move into in a couple of weeks. So things are going along great.
So, Joe,
if y'all want to volunteer, remember that number, 493-4000.
That's 254 area code.
Yeah,
that's correct. It's a downtown Temple, Keep Temple Beautiful office.
Well, and let's keep in mind now that the veterans that we're helping here in this effort is that's those men that had some toxic masculinity in them when they went over there to defend our country. So
absolutely.
We need to, I can't say enough about these wimps, girly men, whatever you want to call them, that are trying to destroy toxic masculinity. The men that stood up and escorted that woman, whatever you want to call her, out of that meeting last night, they were masculine men. They grew some guts somewhere in their life. And, we just need to have more people that will stand up for the right. I'm like that old country music song, if you won't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Well, and I would agree, but I would also throw in there that when you watch the news and you look at the news and you see so many of even police officers that are being accused, that are getting thrown under the bus, that, and I'll be honest, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are saying, wait a minute, do I really want to get involved in this? Is this going to get me drugged into a courtroom somewhere where now all of a sudden I got to hire a lawyer to defend myself? And my question would be, how'd she get in there in the first place?
Well, she walked right through the front door, Joe. But I got a question for you. At what point do we decide that we're going to put our home, our car, our physical well-being on the line to put a Ted Cruz bumper sticker on it or a Trump sign in our front yard? Are they going to burn our house down? Are we not willing to stand up and voice our opinions, stand up for what we believe in? What are we willing to do? Are we not willing to do what our founding fathers did? Are we not willing to do what happened in the beginning?
then you get back to it's an individual commitment. And I got Ted Cruz stickers on my car. I had a Donald Trump sign in my car, in my front yard to vote for. But you know, that doesn't mean everybody thinks along the same lines,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
obviously they don't. So, you know, and you know, not every Democrat is a bad person, but there are
Exactly.
Democratic people that are bad, and obviously there was one there last night. But that doesn't mean that every one of them is or should be considered as a bad person.
No, it doesn't mean that, Joe. But let me inject something here. It doesn't mean that all Democrats are bad people. But I'm going to ask the question: where are the good ones? Why don't the good ones stand up and tell that woman and people like that woman, you can't do that here?
But not only that, there was
Well, she was in a Republican committee, so I mean, there was no Democrat that was going to stand up there last night and go after her. That was for sure.
But the thing was that there was a lot of people who had traveled, you know, maybe 100 miles or more to come to this rally last night, and many of them were voicing the fact that they had even mentioned Ted Cruz, mentioned Donald Trump, or anything like that. And they had been attacked by this person or that, and they were afraid to open their mouths. They opened their mouths. They opened their, you know, they were in their 60s. They were retired. They just, the confrontation, the hatred, nobody could have a civil conversation. And so they were not going to go out and, you know, thump the bushes for anybody because it was too scary.
Well, but why is everybody in this country all of a sudden living in fear? You know, look at our founding fathers. What did they put on the line? What did they risk? Do you remember that? They risked everything.
I was going to say everything, yeah. I mean, there was no challenge too steep or no mountain too high that they would not attain to go over or get over and make things happen. And that's the challenge I think that we have right now is we don't have that same perspective. We're you know, and you know, and I hate to say it, but the media puts a lot of fear in people's hearts when they show some of these things that's going on.
Well, they're gasoline.
You know, we just got to get over it. We just got to keep doing the right thing,
Well, Joe,
keep saying the right things, and you know, hopefully we can get through it.
Joe, these veterans that you're building the housing for and other veterans, did they have to overcome fear when they got in that Humvee in Iraq, knowing that a bomb might blow their self up or know that they might get shot or whatever? Those veterans had to have known that they were entering a dangerous area, a war zone.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about that. And I think, you know, well, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, you know, most of the veterans that we have now, you know, they weren't drafted into the service. They weren't forced to be in the service. They did it because that's what they wanted to do. And I don't think there's a veteran out there that, and I'm sure there were probably some at that rally last night, and I wouldn't be surprised if those were the guys that stood up and said, wait a minute, we're not going to let you do that in here. This is not what this function is about. And the ones that probably picked that lady up or did whatever and got her out of there, I'm sure if we pursued it and looked at it hard enough, they probably have a military background because those are the guys that have stood up for this country for a long time.
Well, the other thing, Joe, they may have had a mother like I had. One of the first things I can remember my mother saying, and I was a little bitty feller, I'll never forget her saying, Conn J, I'd rather see you die a man than live a coward. Now,
Absolutely.
Do mothers say that anymore to their children? No, they sure don't. Well, you know, my mother was a hard woman now, no joke about it. But all the old folks that kind of helped raise me, they all came from World War II, the Depression era, etc. They were a man's man, and they had a little bit of influence on me, and I guess maybe I've got an overdose of toxic masculinity. I don't know what I got, but I say what I think, and I think what I say, and I stand up for what I think is right. And if we don't have more young people, more millennials that grow some guts and start standing up for Christian principles, for good traditional values, etc., we're going to lose this country, folks.
Absolutely.
I really am afraid that we are losing our country.
Hey,
Joe, I appreciate your call and all of the work that you're doing for the veterans. So
we're so happy it's going so well and moving along quite rapidly for you. We'd love to come out and take a look at it sometime.
Okay, great. Let me know. Conn has my number, and we get there Saturday mornings about 7 o'clock in the morning. We like to get started early before it gets too hot, and you guys can drive out there next Saturday before you get started. I'll take you on a tour.
Well,
sounds good.
We may just hold you up to that. So, okay.
No problem.
I think that we are fixing to have to go to a break here and try to pay a few bills. So, y'all just hang on there a few minutes. We'll be right back. Okay, folks, here we are back on the Common Sense with Conn call-in radio talk show. If y'all have a reason to call in and talk about something, the number here is 254-773-1400.
I think we got John in Belton on the phone.
Yeah, I think we got a caller right now. Old John out there in Belton. John, are you there?
Yeah, this is John. Say, I was there last night when Senator Cruz was there. I got there about an hour and a half early, and there was a gal that came up, and she got within probably 15 feet of Senator Cruz, and she had this sign that said had a hammer and sickle on it, and I couldn't understand what she was saying, but somebody said that Cruz had it printed on the poster that he was a communist. The gentleman in the booth next to me got up promptly and tore the sign in half, and they hustled her out. And she looked like she was probably in her 40s or 50s, and the fellow in the booth next to me was probably in his early 60s, but they didn't waste any time getting her out of there. But I worry sometimes about
3-minute stations.
About the safety of some of our candidates. There were no metal detectors, and
the exits were all blocked.
Close, and it was a good idea. They should have had it at the Expo Center, where people couldn't get that close to him.
I don't know what they were thinking. It was kind of shameful. A man of his stature to be in that tiny forum with so few people to show up and no place to put them.
Yeah, well. They were supposed to be in the one in Belton, but I guess it was too small. But still, the one in Temple was still too small.
Oh, it was way too small. I don't know whose idea that was, but it was a bad one. They need to not let them run it again, because that didn't work very well. Yeah. But the fact that she got within 15 feet of Senator Cruz, what if she had had a 38 special instead of a food tray?
Oh yeah.
You know, that's crazy. But my hat is off to the older gentleman that stood for something, stood up and defended what he believes in, and stopped that mess. But I keep asking the question: is he the only one there like that? Are those two older gentlemen the only ones in that crowd that had guts enough to stand up and do something? When are we conservatives? When are we Republicans? When are we Christians going to grow some guts and stand up for what's right?
Yeah, I think when she popped that sign up, I think she caught everyone by surprise. I couldn't really hear what she was saying, and I was sitting in a booth. But
well, you were sitting right in front of me then, but I couldn't hear her either.
Yeah, but anyway, they need to get the Expo Center next time, and I'm worried about our
candidates.
Officials.
Well, it was brought out, I guess, that if you support Cruz, somebody's going to assault you or cuss you out or harass you or something. Well, you know, we can't go around in dread fear of someone disagreeing with us or someone taking offense at what we have to say. As long as what we're saying is true, we need to defend truth. And if the Democrats or the O'Rourke people, if they don't like it, lump it, you know. And if you want to come up and slap me upside the head, come on. But you better be ready to fight when you do. And I just think we need more people that are willing to stand up for the right, stand up for this country and for our traditional Christian values. I don't know what happened to all the men, but
it was a good meeting last night. All in all, Cruz answered a lot of questions, and anyway, all in all, it was a good meeting.
I felt like he was pretty genuine.
I did too. Well, thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you for the call, John. And I guess I can't stress enough my fear for this country and for the future of this country. When we don't have enough men left to defend freedom, traditional values, morality, things that have made this country the greatest nation in the history of the world. Yet we're not willing to defend those things. When are we all going? When are the young people and the middle-aged people? When are they going to grow some guts and stand up for what's right? Excuse me, I get stirred up.
Well, you're saved because you got another call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got another caller. Bob, are you out there?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
Go ahead on.
Well, I was at.
Excuse me, Bob. Are you have your speaker on or your radio on?
I just turned it off.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'm from Fort Hood. And, well, I'm not from Fort Hood. I'm stationed at Fort Hood. But I was at the center last night to hear Senator Cruz. And I'm not an old guy, but I wasn't close enough to do anything when that woman came in with that sign. If it would have been, I'd have probably knocked her down. So it's probably best it wasn't there. Close.
Well, see, Bob, that's the kind of attitude that we need more of. And I know I need to stop railing about this, but I'm just very, very disappointed in the lack of people that will stand up and be counted. You sound like somebody that would have done something. So
well, I'm 28, and I would have done something if I'd have been close enough to do it.
I don't doubt what you're saying. But you're also the kind of guy that if you have to go to war and somebody's shooting at you, you're probably going to grow some guts and get in there and do what you have to do. And that's
been there, got back from Iraq just 6 weeks ago.
Well, I'm just saying there's all this talk on college campuses and in the universities, being taught in our universities about the how awful masculinity is. Well,
yes, sir, that's true.
Well, Ted Cruz did bring up last night that a lot of the stuff that's going on is from the universities. I mean, he sounded in the universities. Almost like you for a moment there. And I was like, wish Conn was here because he could have heard this.
Well, then I guess my question is, why are conservatives supporting
these universities?
Funding to the universities and the colleges? Why do we have tenured professors making $200,000 a year so they can teach our young people to hate America? Explain that for me. Why are we doing that, Bob?
Well, this has been going on since the late 60s, early 70s, got stronger in the 80s, and it's just been going on a little bit at a time, slower, until it's crept up to it's a disease now.
Well, I didn't go to a university. I went to a junior college, or what they used to call junior colleges. It's a community college now, but I didn't see that in community college. I saw some pretty good teachers there, and I'm glad I was a product of that. So I really can't say, but I do know that in the Army, there's a tendency to feminize things too.
Now that's a crazy thing. Now, why would they want to do that in that forum? Why would they want to feminize anything there?
Well, it's all in the Army's goal to further women in the service, and they don't need to do that to further women. I mean, women that
they need to step
job.
up.
Well, yeah, I fear for where we're headed in this country. When you feminize everything in the U.S. Army and the Navy and the Marine Corps, etc., who's going to win the next wars? You know,
Well, that's a good point.
Well, I know that there are people that really endorse that kind of thing. They call it inclusiveness or diversity or whatever you want to call it. But I remember when Major Hassan shot up Fort Hood and killed 13 people, General Casey wasn't worried about his soldiers. He was worried about diversity in the, you know, for crying outside.
Well, so was Bush after 9/11.
Well, you know, I'm not at all worried about diversity. I'm worried about the future of this country. And I'm telling you, this whole diversity push and movement will destroy this nation. This whole push toward the LGBT agenda, that will destroy this nation. This whole push by Antifa will destroy this nation.
Well, I have a question for you. You might be able to help us with, since you went to the rally last night. What do you think? Because it totally perplexes me, just sends me into orbit, why anybody would vote for anybody other than Ted Cruz at this point for what he's done for this country and for Texas and all that. But why in the world would they vote for O'Rourke? I mean, the platforms are completely in opposition. What would cause somebody to want to vote for this man and the radical things that he, is proposing?
Well, I have to say I'm at a loss at that, too, because I can't imagine why anybody would vote for Beto O'Rourke. Just based on the differences between what he stands for and what Senator Cruz stands for, and Senator Cruz loves our country. He's an American, and I don't know what Beto O'Rourke is.
Self-serving?
I do know that he's a progressive socialist, and he wants to bring about the destruction of our country as we know it. And I don't know why anybody would vote Democrat anyway. And certainly none of the young people that I deal with. And I deal with a lot of young guys.
Well, I really do appreciate you making this phone call because, see, I'm an older fella, and my perspective of things is a lot different to young people's perspective of things. So I'm really, really glad to know that there are some people your age that are patriotic, freedom-loving Americans. So,
and traveling the right path.
Yeah, and not trying to destroy the country.
I want to say something about that. I've been overseas a couple of times. I've been to the Middle East 3 times, and there is no country like the United States of America.
Okay,
actually, there's no.
So touch on that. What is the difference? I want that positive feel of why America is different, why America is better, because that same statement is sticking in my craw this week as it was last week of, America was never great. So you've been overseas 3 times. Say, tell the public a few things that stick in your mind about why this country is so much better.
Because you can walk down the street in Temple, Texas, or Killeen, or anywhere in Texas, anywhere in our country, really. Well, maybe not everywhere, like Chicago and places like that. But you can walk down the street and not be afraid that you're going to get mugged or you're going to get shot by some Islamic terrorist that wants to take you in.
Well, and you in Texas, you can maybe pull your own weapon out and defend yourself.
Thank you. I've got an LPC.
And, well, no joke. Not every state in this country can do that, and you sure can't do it in other countries. Like in Mexico, a man called Lynn Woolley not long ago said, in Mexico you can't own a pistol, you can't own a gun hardly, and there was 22,000 murders in Mexico last year. So, what does the anti-gun movement? What does it prevent? Nothing.
Yeah, I like to say this too. We have regular classes that we have to go to on equal opportunity in the Army. And I was at one not too long ago where a young staff sergeant brought up, he was a black man too, brought up the issue that, he asked the whole group, he says, can you ever name a single situation where the Ku Klux Klan lynched an armed black man? And nobody could come up with an example of that. Now, he also cited a couple of cases where there were armed black men who the Klan ran away from, because, of course, they were cowards and they didn't want anything to do with an armed man. So I'll put that out to the listening audience. If you can name one example of a black man that was lynched back whenever they were doing lynchings and such, when was an armed black man ever lynched by the Klan?
Well, there's so misconceptions about the Civil War period of time, and I won't get into that, but I'll just say that my college professor at A&M back in the Dark Ages, he said, let's keep the Civil War in perspective. And he went on to say some of the true events that happened in that period of time. Just for example, let me just repeat one of them. At that period of time, they would whip a black slave if he tried to run away. They'd beat him with a whip, and that was horrible. But what did they do to a white woman guilty of adultery? They cut her nose off.
Branded her face?
Branded her face. His point was this was a very harsh time in our history, not just for black slaves. It was a harsh time for everybody. If we just tell the truth about that and keep it in perspective. But in today's society, people want you to believe that the only thing bad that ever happened to anybody happened to black people, and that's not true. There was bad things happened to all kinds of people. But now you mentioned the black sergeant. I am encouraged by the number of black people like Candace Owens and Kevin Jackson and Walter Williams and my good friend Cal.
There's so many of them to name now. You can't keep up with them, which is just wonderful.
Well, I'm not going to tell you that all black soldiers are going to vote Republican, because that's not true, but a lot of them will. And I've got two things to say, and then because I've got to get out of your way here and let somebody else talk. But you can't judge a 19th century man or woman based on 21st century morals and standards.
Yeah, amen to that.
And the Democrats are trying to do that, and the media is trying to do that every day, and you just can't do it. And the final thing I have to say, I love it when you open your show with the Star Spangled Banner, but by golly, I sure would like you to open your second hour with a Texas song like The Eyes of Texas, or Yellow Rose, or Texas Our Texas, or Texas My Texas.
That is a good suggestion, and our board operator heard that, and we're going to take that to heart.
Well, I appreciate your call.
Yeah, I really appreciate your call, and hey, don't lose the phone number. You call back in.
Well, I sure will. And I appreciate you talking to me and taking my call. And thank you so much, and God bless you.
And we appreciate your service, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot. And right now, we're going to have to go to break. Y'all hang in there just a minute. We'll be right back. I like that old song because it reminds me that we need to stand up and be counted, or else we'll fall for anything. Are we going to stand up for America's traditional values and morality and honesty and truth, or are we going to fall for every lie that everybody puts out there? And there are some lies by both sides of the political spectrum, but most of the lies that I see is from the Democrats. And my question is, and Bob just brought it up a minute ago, he said you can't judge all the Democrats by that one woman's actions last night at the Ted Cruz rally. Well, and I can't judge, and I don't judge all Democrats the same way. But my question is, where's the rest of them? Where are the good Christian, freedom-loving, moral, truth-loving Democrats? Why don't they stand up against people like Beto O'Rourke, or that woman that tried to throw food at Ted Cruz? We can't judge all Democrats by that one, or by Beto O'Rourke. Where's the rest of them? Where are the ones that still want to defend America, that still want to preserve freedom, morality, integrity, character? Where are they? Because it appears to me that there is no load that the Democrats won't sink to to try to beat Donald Trump. And truth has nothing to do with it. They just want to criticize and find fault with Donald Trump. And I really do believe that he is doing his best to preserve the traditions of America. And I think he's doing a good job because he has some experience. He has some common sense. And I think that we're making a bad, bad mistake when we allow all the decision making to be done by college professors that have never done a damn thing in their life except sit in a classroom. I like the fact that Donald Trump has been out there in the big world. He's gotten knocked down. He's had some success. He's had some failures. But at least he has some experience. And he understands what the big world is all about. And I'm telling you, we're being led down the path to destruction by people that's never done anything. I think we got Rick in Salado. And Rick, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead on.
Well, we've got a strong president now. We haven't had one in a while. And that's, I think, what makes the difference. And unfortunately, the Democrats have gone crazy. But, and a lot of Republicans, too, because they can't stand the fact that the ruling class doesn't have control anymore of the White House. Now we've got, for the most part, a regular person in there. Now, he's not exactly regular. I mean, he was a multimillionaire and stuff, but he's not one of them. That's my point.
Exactly, and that's my point, Rick, is we need somebody, used to the presidents like Eisenhower, etc., they came out of the military, and they had some experience. Now, see, you hear me criticizing college professors. Some of the smartest people I have ever met had college degrees, but they also had work experience.
And they probably weren't Marxists.
Yeah, and they had a combination of work experience and college experience. But I'm talking about those people who have never done a dad-blame thing all their life except go to college. Yet they're trying to tell us how to live our life. And I got a real problem with that.
Okay, now let me get to, you heard about that place in New Mexico where they had a little compound?
Yeah.
And they were training kids to be school shooters?
Yeah.
And you know what they didn't really tell us right off the bat, and it had to, the alternative media had to bring it out until the regular media told us. The people were Muslim extremists. And there's little camps like that all over the place.
Yes, there is.
And these poor people, they were so backwards. It's like a cult. They didn't even have running water. They found those things that use condensation to trap water. That's how they were getting their water. And they had these poor women that were there that they looked miserable. They were dressed in their burqas and all that stuff. And they never talk about that until some kind of talk show host or something actually brings it out, and then all of a sudden, okay, yeah, they were Muslim.
Well, now, Rick, somebody is going to stand up and say, "Oh, but we can't judge all Muslims by those." Okay, and I agree with that. We can't judge them all the same way. But you tell me which ones are which. You tell me which ones are going to fly the airplane into the Twin Towers in New York. You pick out the ones that we need to kick out of the country. You can't do it. But my point is, why are we trying to bring thousands and thousands more just like them to this country? Why?
Because it's not us. It's politicians who hate them. They hate America. They want some kind of a open border, one world, pie in the sky, kumbaya world, and it's just not going to work. America needs to be strong. That's why I'm glad we have Donald Trump as president, because if we're going to be weaklings like when Barack Obama was president, bowing to dictators and stuff, and giving money to our enemies and and forgetting about Americans that are being held captive in other countries, then we're not going to get anywhere.
Well, let me bring up a point, Rick, real quick. Do you know what was one of the first things that Barack Obama did when he became president? You probably don't remember this, but I do. One of the first things he did was he converted NASA from the space program to the Muslim outreach program.
Okay,
I remember that.
Obama did that.
I hadn't heard that, and I almost didn't believe Conn. I had to go Google it, and it's like, I was like, how do you get from space to Muslim outreach? I'm like, only Obama could pull that off.
See, when he first ran for president, I made the statement on another show. I said he is a communist and a Muslim, and the fellow said that's impossible, Conn. Well, was it impossible? Because that's what he was, and he proved it every day he was in office.
Hey, before I have to go, people who say America was never great,
Yes.
these are the kind of people who. You remember in Nevada when those ranchers were rebelling against the government because about their land use and stuff?
Yeah, in Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of these America haters were saying, well, that land belonged to the Indians before those farmers had it. Let's give it back to the people who originally owned it. Well, those Indians lived in the mountains. They didn't cultivate the land and turn it into fertile farmland like the farmers did. Those Indians lived in the mountains, and they didn't mess with the land out there. It was all a desert.
Well, and, let's keep this in perspective, Rick. Did those Indians invent Ford Motor Company? Did they invent airplanes? Did they invent computers? I don't think they did.
And also, the government wanted to give that land to the Chinese. I forget the guy's name that was the senator from Nevada. He was a really rotten person, though. But he was trying to make land deals to the Chinese. And, so is that what those liberals mean? Give it to the Chinese?
Yeah, that's what they would do. They would destroy America. Their goal, Rick, is to destroy this country. And I guess our goal is...
Got to go to a break.
We got to go.
Yep.
Got to go to a break. I think we got a minute left, Rick. So.
But anyway, that's what when they say America was never great, they look at it. I don't know how to describe it. Where they believe in the survival of the fittest, and yet they whine that we were more fit than the Native Americans to own this land.
Oh,
so if they would have stuck together, they would have won probably.
There's so much screwy thinking out there. You got to wonder what they use for brains.
All right,
we got to go to break, Rick. You be careful out there. Okay, Ed folks, first. Here we are back on the Common Sense with Conn call-in talk show. We got so much to talk about today. I don't know where to start.
I don't know, but Ed's not leaving us any extra time to do it.
Yeah, Ed, are you still out there?
Yes, sir, I am, Mr. Conn, and Tina, you're exhibiting way too much common sense again. And I would like to speak to these two issues that you brought up so far. And
I thought you were going to say idiots, and I'm like, well, that would have fit in just perfectly as well.
Well, you're both being extremely articulate, and that's very important in conveying your point. Now, these issues with the Democratic Party, are there any good spokesmen for the Democratic Party? And also these knuckleheads in New Mexico. I would like to suggest that these are trends, today's trends for not only the Democratic Party, but these lunatic Muslims that really do not belong in our country because their culture, their mentality does not match our way of life and our culture.
Amen. You're right about that, Ed. You're 100% right about that. They don't need to be here because their goal is to destroy this country.
That's exactly it. Their goal is to destroy our culture, our country, our Constitution. And if there are any good Democrats out there that support our Bill of Rights, let them come forward. Let them take control of what used to be the Democratic Party. I call the Communist Party. And also their affiliate ally, the mainstream media that I call the Ministry of Propaganda.
Yeah, and, I could not agree more. I think the Muslim people that want to destroy this country, they need to get out of this country. The woman demonstrating on the Statue of Liberty, she's from the Congo. She needs to go back to the Congo. And I think all the people that really hate this country, they need to leave it. If you don't like it, leave it. And I'm serious about that.
My brain does a flip when I listen to her, because all she talks about is hate, hate, hate. How we hate. But she's the one that's doing the hating, and my brain just cannot comprehend what I'm hearing and seeing and what she's saying. It's
well,
amazing.
what other country can you go to and deride their country, protest, scream out against, and speak freely?
And not go to jail.
And not go
die.
to jail or die, the execution block. Try that in a Muslim country and see what happens.
Yeah, or even Venezuela. There's all kind of countries in the world where you cannot do that. So to come here to this free country and cuss the country, I run out of patience really, really quick with that kind of stuff. And I believe and I treasure the freedom of speech. I really do. But when the freedom of speech is meant to destroy the freedom of speech, then there's something wrong with this.
Well, that's a very good point. And
It's being
does
exploited.
An individual from another country have the constitutional rights? Do they?
Well, the president of Mexico said everyone in the world has a moral right to come to the United States.
Human rights.
So,
yeah.
He can talk that way. He's in Mexico.
Does he feel the same way about Mexico? Does he feel that someone from another country can come to Mexico freely?
No, they're talking about improving their walls.
Well, I'll tell you what happens in Mexico. Well, I might better.
No,
shut
you
up.
better maybe not do that.
I was going to use an example of.
But I was going to bring up that Beto says that there should be no walls. All of our walls should come down. All of our fencing should come down.
Well,
Does he feel that way about Mexico?
Yeah.
Well,
No. Can you go to Mexico? Are they removing their walls? Are they allowing people to come into Mexico freely, stay there, live off of a welfare state?
Oh, absolutely not.
Well, I'm going
Why is
to
that?
I'm going to refrain from describing what they did to 150 people in Soto La Marina about a year ago that came there from Honduras, Guatemala, etc. Shut up, Conn. I won't go there. But
No, that's the point. That is the point. These countries that suggest coming to America and destroying our country, our culture, do they allow that to happen in their country?
no, they just shoot you.
That's right.
Now Ed, you done got me stirred up. See, you done got.
Yeah, he can't finish. He can't finish a sentence now, Ed.
Well, I didn't mean to do that, but these points need to be addressed.
Well, they do. They absolutely do. And we have gotten so squeamish and so tender-hearted, we can't tell the truth anymore. And we can't bring up anything that might be negative. We have overdosed on positive thinking. Well, there are negative things out here in this world that we live in, and you had better learn to recognize and deal with the negative, because everything in this world is not beautiful, positive.
It's not a case of positive thinking, it's a case of truth.
Yeah.
When you call
exactly.
truth a hate crime, what level are we at?
Well, we're in denial, and when you are in, what is the result?
We're not talking about a river in Egypt either.
I think it's brainwashing.
It's ultimate brainwashing.
Someone said it's human nature when you find, for example, if somebody said you have cancer, your first reaction is denial. It's human nature to do that. Well, what happens when you deny the truth? The truth is going to run over you. The truth is, whether it's negative, positive, whatever it is, truth is truth. And if you deny it, anyway.
Hey, Ed, I got a question. Did you go and see the movie The Death of a Nation?
No, I haven't. But dealing with this truth issue, I'm reminded of the movie Shooter, where the bad guy senator made a comment, and he said, "The truth is what we say it is."
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at in this country.
Pretty much.
Well, Ed, I was talking earlier about toxic masculinity and things like that. You and I went down to see the Texas Ranger Museum here the other day, and you know, I would recommend that especially every Texan needs to go through the Texas Ranger Museum in Waco, Texas, because it really does explain what Texas is all about and some of the men that made Texas what it is. And I would like to see more people like the people described in that Texas Ranger Museum. And I think maybe you enjoyed that trip down there, Ed.
It was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah, but all of those men in that museum that they're talking about down there, they all were masculine men. There wasn't any girly men in that group. And the film that they show in there really does describe some things about Texas Rangers that I didn't know. But at any rate, you know, I kept talking about the universities that want to destroy masculinity. Well, when you destroy masculinity, who's going to defend the weak? Who's going to defend the nation, freedom, liberty, Christianity, all these things? Who's going to defend it when you convert all the men to girly men?
And that's part of the planned destruction of our society. You've referred to these educators, how they have no life experience. I would say that, and I'm not making a general statement about every college professor or educator, but I think a lot of them are educated fools.
Yeah. I have referred before to them as being educated intellectual idiots. And I think that's a pretty fair statement, because some very smart feller years and years ago said, in the last days, man will confound himself with his own intelligence. And that's where we are now.
Yes, I believe that. Well, I'm going to jump and let somebody else call in.
Okay, thank you, Ed, for the call, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okie doke.
Right now, I need to advertise just a little bit for some folks here. Good people. Old Jack Folsom out there at Reed Realty. You people need to know Jack. He's a realtor here in Temple, and just really a good feller. His number out there is 254-742-2224. If y'all got some real estate you need to sell, give old Jack a call, because he's a good one.
I think he does some lease management work now, too, if I remember correctly.
Some who?
Some lease management work.
Oh, yes, he does. He will manage your apartments or your rental property or whatever else it is. Give old Jack a call over there. 742-2224. Another one I'd like to talk about just a minute here is Alpha Hydraulics up in Spiegelville. Now, his address is 8468 North Highway 6 in Waco. If you get on Highway 6 in Waco and head out to Spiegelville, well, that's where he's at. He has done some hydraulic work for us, like rebuilt hydraulic motors and things of that sort, and they just do a really a good job, and he's really fair on the money.
You've been using him for a while, right?
Yeah, I've been dealing with him for quite a while, and they're just good people. Talk to old Larry up there. His number is 254-848-9981, I think.
You want me to see it?
Yeah, you better read that. I'm getting to where I can't see it, that blame thing.
254-848-9981. You had it.
Yeah, I had it, I guess. Okay. Well, give Larry a call if you got some hydraulic work you need to do. along that line, Extreme Hose and Hydraulics in out here at 5300 South General Bruce Drive is another good one. If you've got some hydraulic hoses on your old tractor or your bulldozer, whatever it is, they're old and they're getting bad, you go by Extreme Hose out there on General Bruce Drive, or give him a call. His number is 254-717-5562. That's 717-5562. I'll tell you what, he will build you a hydraulic hose, and he'll do it quick, fast, and in a hurry. I've been using him for quite a while, too, and he's right here in Temple. So y'all go by and give him a holler.
So Lee's on the line in Belton, but we're going to have to take a real quick break. And Lee, hang in there. We'll be right back with you.
Okay, here we are back on the Common Sense with Conn show. I think we have Lee in Belton hanging on, so we better hear what Lee got to talk about. Lee, are you there?
Yeah, Sean, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead on.
Hey, Sean, I've spoken to you about 3 or 4 times. You may not remember. You may. But I've got an idea. I've got some thoughts on what's going on today. I don't know if you've been covering it, but are into it, about the Steele dossier. Are you familiar with all that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, there's 4 things that came up this week that really, I don't know, maybe I'm looking into conspiracy thinking or what. But first of all, you have Rod Rosenstein visiting with the president quite a bit this week. Have you heard about that?
No, I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah, he's in there trying to make nice.
Yeah, he's trying to mend his fences, maybe, but
right. And so that's number one. There are 4 things that I'm going to bring up, and you tell me if I can connect the dots. The second thing is Rudy Giuliani said on Sean Hannity the other night that it's fixing to blow up. Do y'all remember that?
Yes, sir.
Where he said it's fixing. Sean Hannity said, yeah, it's fixing to, and I wish I could tell the audience what's going to happen, but I can't because I can't confirm it all or something like that. The third thing is the president gave a tweet this morning saying he's about to intervene into the whole Russian thing and unredact all that information.
Wow.
Did you all see that tweet this morning? He didn't say the unredaction. He just says, I may have to intervene. It looks like I'm going to have to, if you looked at his tweets this morning.
Well, Lee, he's damn if he does and damn if he don't. But
that's right.
We have
and
got
the fourth thing is that Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh were not on the radio Friday. I don't know if they're doing something. I think that they're talking to Trump because, both of them weren't on the radio Friday. And all this is leading up. I think Trump is fixing to unredact everything and let the American people see it. And I think it's coming within a week or 2. I mean, this is my thoughts. What do y'all think?
Well, let me ask you a question, Lee. A lot of people are very, very reluctant to mention the word conspiracy. Alex Jones talks about it a lot, and people don't like that and all that kind of stuff. But how else do you explain what's happening in the FBI, the DOJ?
CIA.
How do you explain the involvement of, what's his name? My brain just went broke.
Which department is he?
Peter.
The guy that's financed, the richest man in the world, is financing.
Soros.
Yeah, George Soros. How do you explain his involvement? How do you explain billionaires giving billions of dollars to try to destroy this country? How do you explain that if it doesn't involve conspiracies? Because how does the news media, the Democrat Party, George Soros, all this stuff, they're all doing the same thing at the same time, and their goal is to destroy this country. How do you avoid saying that that's a conspiracy?
It's very difficult. The truth is what matters. Is the truth comes out. George Soros, he was he helped the Nazis. You know that, don't you?
Yes.
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 Yeah. You know that. I mean, that's a given. I don't know why anybody would follow him, believe him, anything.
Well,
that's ridiculous.
We keep ignoring truth, and that's what I try to do on this show is let's emphasize truth. And I don't care if it's politically incorrect, politically correct, or anything else. Truth is truth. It should be the constant in our life. It should be the constant in America is a thing called truth. That should be the foundation of everything we do in this country. But all of a sudden, if it's not politically correct, then you can't say it. So,
well, I think, go ahead.
Well, where are we going with this? I mean, what's the end result of us totally abandoning truth in favor of political correctness or some goal that George Soros has?
Socialist utopia?
Yeah. I think we call it destruction. Lord, don't get me started on that again, but I don't explain. I can't understand why people can't accept the fact that there are groups or people out there that wants to destroy this country.
It's a lot of it true. Education should be to find the truth, and that's what education should be. A lot of times it's not in our colleges nowadays to seek that, but that is ultimately, I used to teach college, and so, my philosophy on education was always to seek the truth. And I think eventually we're going to find the truth here. It may take a little bit, but I think we're on our way. Have y'all seen the show by DeSota? What's that guy?
The Death of a Nation?
Yeah, I saw that the other day. That was a good show.
We all went and saw it, yeah. And for me, I mean, Conn is all-knowing, all-seeing, he has experienced it and lived through it, can tell you, in his, photographic memory of every single detail. But me, on the other hand, right, being a little younger and less exposed to the world, evidently, knew about, 7% of that stuff. And certainly had my timetables out of whack. Yeah.
But,
like Sinclair and Planned Parenthood, that was founded by a lady that wanted to wipe out blacks. I mean, that's the truth.
Well, not just blacks, but handicapped and anybody else that was.
Yeah, and everybody, yeah.
Well, I think that was the same thing that Adolf wanted to do.
But the timelines that were proposed in that were just remarkable to me. The amount of information that it disclosed. I mean, it was very narrow, but it was a tremendous amount of information that most of us, I don't think, do know, and that they need to go and see it. It's an hour and a half of their time, $5 for the matinee. Man, go get an education.
Well, see, Tina and I were discussing something a while ago, and she brought something to mind that I hadn't thought about. We watched that movie, and in the movie he talked about the Nazi brown shirts. Well, I thought everybody in the United States knew what the Nazi brown shirts were, but Tina reminded me that young people have never heard about that. It's why when I made the reference to the Democrats sponsoring the high school students marching in Killeen to protest the Second Amendment, I called them the Democrat brown shirts. Well, people did not make the connection because young people today have never been taught what the Nazi brown shirts were.
They have no way to relate.
That they can't relate to that. I can compare Democrat brown shirts marching against the Second Amendment. I can compare that to the Nazi brown shirts in Germany. But that kind of makes me, I don't know what it makes me, but
a dinosaur?
A dinosaur, something.
I love you, but a dinosaur.
Hey, Conn, I tell you what, and Tina, whenever I was I teach in college, I used to teach about the wall, the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
And 90% of the students had no clue what the Soviet Union was.
Oh, and still don't.
And they didn't understand the significance of the Berlin Wall. And so, I taught sociology, but a lot of times I found myself trying to teach history, too, along with that.
Can you imagine if you painted a picture of what one side of the wall looked like and what the other side of the wall, the life on the other side of the wall looked like, and just put them up there on a split screen? They'd be devastated. They'd fall out of their shoes.
Well, would they know? Would they know what that machine gun on top of that wall was for?
Blowing Nerf bullets or water balloons. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Oh, jeez.
Well, whatever happened to reality? You know, like I said a while ago about positive thinking, negative thinking, they don't show the machine guns and tell you what they are because it's negative. Oh my gosh, we can't say anything negative. You know, the world is full of negative things and positive things. But you have got to be able to recognize negative if you're going to deal with it.
And I think I'm going to tell you the only faith I have in this country is that I love Trump. I think he's going to do a remarkable job, and I really, in my core belief, believe that God is with them and that
I so hope you're
everything's going
right.
to work out.
Well,
and that's what I hope, and that's what I know. I mean, so that's where I'm at, and that's all I can go with.
Well,
right now.
I keep saying the same thing, and I'll say it one more time. Folks, there ain't but two sides in this fight. There's God and there's Satan. There's right and there's wrong. There's dark and there's light. There's good and there's evil. It's just up to us to decide whose side we're on. And I'm telling you, the decision time is here. We need to decide whose side we are on.
Stand up and vote.
Yes,
absolutely.
Well, you know, as I was thinking about that you know, Conn just said, because he says it quite often, and you know, when I was last night when I was at the rally, and I was thinking, how in the world can Ted Cruz be down? I mean, dollar-wise, it's Beto's got him 3-1 money. It doesn't have the people out there walking, knocking on the doors, calling people and this and that. I mean, he needs help. I mean, I just don't understand how he could need that kind of help. He could be down that much. You know, it is just right and wrong. To me, it's black and white. How can you not see that this man, that Ted Cruz has done good, and this other man is going to destroy the state and move forward?
If people are afraid to support Ted Cruz, what have we come to?
And he did say that, and so did the people that were there at the rally. Many of them spoke out about the fact they were afraid.
You know, and
yeah, Democrats.
If we think those people producing that fear, if we think they're on God's side, we better think again, folks. You know, it's obvious what side is represented by Satan and what side is represented by God. And
absolutely, yeah.
And
absolutely, yeah.
And that's not hard to figure out, folks. Anyway,
yeah.
we had better be. We had better.
I'm just saying, Democrats believe that you know, Texas is always fool's gold for them. You know that. Just like the Trump, you know, he took Texas. Everybody said he wasn't going to, or pretty close, or whatever. I think it's the same thing here with Ted Cruz. I think he's going to take it, and no problem whatsoever. It's just that the Democrats, they always think they can do that, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, let me say, and I've been saying this for a long time, anybody who wants to take over America, they can do it, but they have got to take Texas first.
Well, the problem...
Right.
And if they take Texas, if Texas goes blue, America is over.
Well, that's what they were saying last night, was that Cruz is the only Republican that's running in these senatorial races for November. Everybody else is a Democrat, and so he's got a target on him. They want to make sure it's a straight win across the bow, and they're out to get him. I didn't get to hear all of it and all the little details of it, but that was the statement pretty much.
Well, we better be standing up for Ted Cruz. We better be standing up for liberty, freedom, Christianity. We had better stand up. I'm like that song, if you don't stand up, you'll fall for anything. Well, if we don't stand up now for Ted Cruz and people like Ted Cruz, we're going to lose this country, folks. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, they fear what their kids and grandkids might see. I got news for you. You better fear what we're going to see, because this is coming so fast. Right now, the Communist Party, the LGBT movement, all of those different movements that want to destroy America, it is coming on fast.
You blink, it's going to be over.
Yes, sir, it is. And I really do think, and I hate to say it, I think civil war is right around the corner.
Well, and we're not going to have enough time today to go over all my shorthand notes that I took that I can barely read last night. I was standing sweltering in that room, but for 3 hours. But I'm going to try to put some bullet points up on the Facebook page, the notes from the rally last night, so at least those that didn't get to go can kind of hear what he had to say. So,
what's the Facebook page address?
It's Common Sense Conn.
Common Sense Conn.
Yeah,
okay,
and please share it. Let people know. We are shadow banned a lot, but the more people get it out there, the more it will be read, and we can get the word out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate y'all talking to me, so I just want to put my 2 cents in and give that thought about. I think something's about to come down. I think.
I hope
so.
You're
That's
right.
just my theory. So I don't know.
Well, something needs to come down because, like this thing with Mueller, how many millions of dollars has he spent?
Squandered.
How many millions of dollars have been given to his friends and associates that want to destroy Donald Trump? I mean, why is the United States taxpayer funding this guy that wants to destroy our country?
Well, the thing is, it's not even legitimate. I mean, he shouldn't even be doing it.
No, they're covering their own butts.
So, when are we the people going to call our senators and our representatives and say, get your behind in gear and get rid of Mueller?
And I'll go ahead and put a list of all the phone numbers and email addresses for the representatives for this area, and so that you can start calling and drop in emails and maybe even write a preformed letter that y'all could just kind of cut and paste into Word and go from there.
Okay, Lee, I appreciate your call.
Please call back.
Yeah, call back. Don't lose the phone number. Right now, we got to go to break and try to pay a bill or two. Y'all hang in there, and we'll be right back. Here we are back on the show, folks, with Common Sense with Conn. The phone number here is 254-773-1400. If y'all want to call in and talk about something, just pick up the phone and call me. But I want to make a little bit of an announcement here, or just spread some information. The first day of early voting, now this is about signing up to vote, and we need a lot of voter participation in this upcoming election in November. If we think that we don't have anything to worry about, we can be complacent and just not worry about going down to vote, you better think again, folks. This is serious business. We're talking about the future of this country. At any rate, let me say that the last day to register to vote, the first day of early voting by personal appearance is October the 22nd. That's on a Monday. The last day to apply for a ballot by mail is Friday, October the 26th. Okay, the last day to register to vote is Tuesday, October the 9th. Now, I'll repeat some of this and give you all time to get you a pencil out.
Yeah, that was a little confusing the way you did that.
Yeah, I confuse a lot. So, anyway, the last day to register to vote is Tuesday, October the 9th. The first day of early voting is Monday, October the 22nd. The last day to apply for a ballot by mail is Friday, October the 26th. The last day of early voting by personal appearance is Friday, November the 2nd. The last day to receive a ballot by mail is Tuesday, October the 6th. Now, I might say that if anyone has a question about that, you can call Republican headquarters, and I don't have the dead blame phone number, but
I'll look it up here in just a minute.
We'll look it up in just a minute. But it's really important, folks, for y'all to register to vote if you're not already registered. I think I stay registered because I'm going to vote. Every time there's a vote coming up, I'm going to go vote. And I don't make any bones about the fact that I'm going to vote Republican. I would say vote for who you feel like you ought to vote for, but look at the issues, look at the caliber of people that you're voting for. Look at the caliber of people demonstrating in the street, raising hell, burning down buildings, etc. They all support Democrats. We talked about the lady that, or the woman that was at the Ted Cruz rally last night, wanting to throw food at Ted Cruz. Is that the type people that you want to follow? Is that who you want to see as leadership in this country? Give me a break. Well, let me just read something briefly. It's from the Rotary Club. The 4-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. Number 1, is it the truth? And I might emphasize that again. The first thing, is it the truth? That's what I keep talking about. Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Let me expand a little bit on that. Is it fair to all concerned? Everything in this world is not fair. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Well, sometimes it don't. But if you're I go back to the first one, is it truth? So if it doesn't build goodwill and better friendships, as long as it's true, that should not be the concern, because you should express truth whether it builds goodwill or not. Will it be beneficial to all concerned? That's number 4. And that's important, only if it's true. So I keep going back to the first thing, is it the truth? We need to speak the truth whether it hurts somebody's feelings or not. We need to speak the truth whether it's politically correct or not. Anyway, I'll get off of that soapbox. But
Is Ed still on?
Okay.
Ed's still on the line. Wait.
Ed is still on the line. Ed, I didn't mean to hold you up so long, but are you there?
I don't mean to monopolize your airtime, but I have
we know.
two points I'd like to address.
Only two?
Yes. That is censorship in the media. You brought up Alex Jones, and he has been booted off Facebook and Google or YouTube, whatever. And this is censorship. I'm old enough to remember when these Marxists were complaining that they were not given airtime. They did not have the freedom of speech, and this is when the media was more diversely owned by other entities. And since then, the George Soros types and the others have bought the media and have are limiting freedom of speech and are censoring people like Alex Jones and others. And there is going to be no freedom of speech in this country. They do not recognize our freedom of speech of the First Amendment. And this, unfortunately...
Well, they recognize their freedom of speech.
But not the freedom of speech of everybody.
This is correct.
This is the whole point. This is the direction they're going. These Marxists have taken over the media, now known as the Ministry of Propaganda, and they're limiting our freedom of speech. We need to address this, and we need to end it. So if they're going to limit our freedom of speech, then perhaps Google and Facebook should have their freedom of speech limited as well.
They were talking this week about the fact. Now, first of all, I'm not an Alex Jones fan, but it's the First Amendment right, and if you start, censoring that, you have a problem. But they were talking this week that if that Google, Twitter, Facebook, et cetera, were all public. They were companies, privately owned. But if they were going to go in and start censoring, then they would fall under, I forgot what the term was that they used, but essentially like newspapers and stuff were. And that would change everything. And if they did that, then they would turn around, that Congress could put regulations on them and get this stopped. I wish I could remember all the little details of that, but maybe somebody can look it up and call us back with that information. And of course, then, Loretta Lynch and Holder is the one who kind of opened all this up, and then Obama putting Google in the White House.
Okay, post that on the website when you get it. My second point is this constant harassment by Mueller. This falls into the category of barristry. And for those who do not know what barristry is, it's a legal offense using the legal system to harass. And it is a crime, and it should be dealt with. And I think other attorneys have not brought this up. Maybe there's an attorney listening that can elaborate on this. But I think other attorneys have not brought this up because that's typically what they do, unfortunately, in their occupation.
Well, so, Ed, I'm not an attorney, but I can elaborate a little bit. There are 350,000 criminal violations in this country. So if I want to get Ed, if I'm a prosecutor, just give me a name and I'll find the crime. And that's what Mueller's doing. He is on a rabbit hunt to find any little thing he can find. And is that what freedom is all about? Do we want to use 350,000 criminal violations to get somebody, no matter what they're...
The mentality of show me the man and I'll find the crime, that's a criminal. That's a criminal that thinks that way. And that person needs to be brought to justice himself.
Well, and that's what Mueller's doing. That's exactly what he's doing. When he's resorting to pressing charges on somebody over a 2005 violation of the tax code that don't have a damn thing to do with Donald Trump or the Trump campaign or anything else, but he's wanting to pressure that guy to turn on Trump, that ought to be criminal.
Well,
that is criminal.
Isn't this also bleeding over into like the Article 3 of where, the judicial benches are now legislating from the bench? All these judges and stuff are rewriting things, telling the president what he can and cannot do. It doesn't have any kind of legal basis at all.
And Ed, I can remember back about 30 years ago when you you were jaywalking, and we need to go back and examine that criminal act that you committed and see if we can't pressure you into confessing to something because of something you did 30 years ago. That is so ridiculous. It's so crooked. It's so criminal.
Well, and the amount of time frame they want to put him away for, 300 and some odd years, and then Gates, what did they do? They gave him 280 years, and they just wrote it off if you'll just say something.
Well, and look at what they did to General Flynn. They couldn't get him on anything, so they went after his son and forced General Flynn to plead guilty to some Mickey Mouse something because he didn't want him to use his son. I tell you what, I'm kind of old-fashioned, but now you come threaten one of my family, and well, I better shut up.
Well, again, this is using this legal system to harass, and that is barristry, and somebody needs to bring it up and prosecute and address it.
Well, there's a lot of people, and I guess most of them live in Texas. There's a lot of folks in this state down here. You go threaten their family, and you better increase your life insurance before you do that, because you may not make it home for supper. There's folks down here that don't like that, and they're going to. I've said before, you need to be careful who you threaten, because some people, if you threaten them, you better be ready to pull the trigger. And I know some folks like that. You don't threaten some people unless you're ready to suffer the consequences. So anyway, Ed, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hey,
Bye.
You be careful up there. Okay, folks, here we are back on the air with Common Sense with Conn. If y'all got something to think about or talk about, well, give me a call. I think we've only got 5 minutes left on this show, and I don't know where in the world the 2 hours went to, but man alive, I sure have enjoyed this. I've enjoyed all the good callers and all the good conversation, and I think that we have an obligation to talk about issues like we have talked about for the last 2 hours. I think we have a responsibility to talk about this stuff, because how do we spread the truth? How do we sound the watch cry if we remain silent? I've heard all my life the old saying, silence is consent. Okay, if you don't say something about Beta O'Rourke and the way they're acting, then I guess you must agree with it. Well, if you don't agree with it, say something. If you want to defend freedom in this country, say something. If you remain silent, I guess you agree with the folks that are trying to destroy this country. You need to stand for something, and that's what this show is all about. We are standing for freedom and liberty and Christian values, the things that have made this country the greatest, strongest country in the history of the world. And I, for one, am proud of that. I've said before, I am proud to be an American, I'm proud to be a Southerner, and I'm proud to be a Texan. And if you don't want to hear that, you might better change the channel on your radio, because I'm just that way. I'm not ashamed of it, I'm proud of it, and I think that we all had better be proud of the freedoms that we have here in this country. And we better stand up and defend them, else we're going to lose them. And I keep using the analogy of turning on your water and not having any water. You don't ever think about that. You take it for granted that you've got water in your bathroom until you turn on the faucet and it's not there. The difference is you can get the water back. When you lose freedom, you can't get it back. If we lose freedom in this country, folks, it will be gone forever. You'll never get it back. And your children will never know what freedom was. If we, this generation, if we lose freedom, our kids will never experience freedom.
Well, you know, the thing is that really that some people think the lack of freedom would be they lost their cell phone, or, you know, they can't watch a certain program on Netflix or some other thing. That's some horrific. They just don't have any way to compare it. These young people have no way to compare what you and I are talking about and what a lot of our callers are talking about in relation to what they've experienced.
They cannot imagine going down to H-E-B and then being no food on the shelf. They cannot imagine that.
Well, only from when there's, you know, a hurricane or something, they might see a little news clip or something, but for there not to be any food there for months, years.
Well, and in Venezuela right now, they've had socialism there for 20 years in Venezuela. And
they're eating the zoo animals.
They're eating animals out of the zoo. You know, is that what we want to see? We've got people running for public office that are self-avowed socialists. And is that what we want? The woman Cortez in New York, a self-avowed socialist. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. Bernie Sanders, by his admission, the only job he ever had was working for the government, signing up welfare people. Joe Biden has never held a public job in his life. Is that what we want as leadership in this country? You know, people cuss Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump has a lot of experience. He's done a lot of things, and he's making a huge difference in America. And all I can say is God bless Donald Trump. And the second thing I can say is God protect Donald Trump.
Yeah, you brought up the welfare thing, and that just starts me on a whole new thing for next week.
Oh, don't get me started on the welfare thing. You know, I think we're down to 1 minute, and
and somebody thinks Conn's already off the phone. They're already hitting up his phone.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, Trump's going to go start shipping boxes and then making everybody be drug tested that's going to be on welfare, and I think that's excellent. I think that's just super. But anyway, so it's been a great show this week.
I really have appreciated all the callers and all of the good conversation, and y'all just hang in there until next Saturday, and we'll do the same thing again.
I sure wish we had a third hour. See y'all. Have a good Sunday.